So I want to start with the positive. Congratulations to Stuart Sternberg. It's taken a long time, as I told you it would during all those owners' meetings we went to together. You're not going to be the most popular kid on the block. It's going to take getting right to the edge of extinction or the edge of tomorrow, and then you will get a deal. Having a new stadium anywhere is not the panacea that it used to be when the first crop of new stadia, like in Baltimore, Pittsburgh, Houston, San Francisco, places where attendance skyrocketed. San Francisco, you may not remember Candlestick Park, that was Pro Player Stadium. They moved to AT&T Park, and they started an unbelievable stretch of success on and off the field. Don't forget what the Pirates were when they were winning in their new amazing Pac Bell. The Astros when they got out of the Astrodome and went to Enron, which then became Minute Maid. When we were doing pro formas to go from Pro Player Stadium to Marlins Park, we thought that opening a ballpark in 2012 was close enough to the new stadium age that we could count on attendance and therefore local revenue to grow significantly immediately. We raised the payroll to a record number, and the revenue did not come with it, which caused the complete craziness, nightmare of that Toronto trade in 2012 at the end of the year with the total reset. A crushing blow. Tampa's way too smart to do what I did. They're not going to raise their payroll until they know what their revenue is going to be. Nobody opening a new stadium, John Fisher included, no matter what is promised to you, is going to raise their payroll irresponsibly the way we did, thinking that the attendance will follow, that the huge naming rights deal's coming, that corporate revenue is going through the roof, that everyone's going to be so excited to go to St. Pete, but not to the Trop, instead to the new building. Why was it necessary? Because the Trop is too old. The lease was running out, and they wanted to see whether or not a new ballpark would help them. It's not going to make them revenue-sharing payors. They're not going to become one of the top 10 payroll teams. They're not going to become one of the top 10 attendance teams. But it's going to lessen the gap between the 28th most local revenue and the 22nd. We used to have a line when we were trying to get public financing, which was, we're okay with being 30th because someone has to be 30th. We don't want to be 60th. It's a line I used in Montreal with TV revenue, saying we're okay being 30th but not 60th. It's a line I used in Florida about ticket revenue. We're okay being 30th but not 60th. The new ballpark is supposed to take care of that. The problem is new ballparks don't do that anymore. You can look at the numbers from the most recently opened ballparks and realize that Tampa is going to be more conservative in their projections. When they submitted their projections to Major League Baseball, which you have to do when you want a new stadium before MLB approves the new stadium, the projections, I assure you, are much more tame, much more realistic. But back to the positive, what a great moment for those in Tampa and St. Pete, knowing that you will still have your baseball team for generations to come. But let's ask some tough questions, because I did not get a credential from CBS or from Meadowlark Media. I will not be at the press conference at 10:30 a.m. at the Trop when Stu Sternberg announces it. So for anybody in the media out there listening, and I know there are many, thank you, I have a few questions. Number one, if you thought that you had to put $600 million into a project, why didn't you do the project in Tampa when Ybor City was available to you and your contribution would have been less and the ballpark would have been opened earlier? There must be a reason. Let's find out what it is. Two, for a $1.2 billion ballpark, what is the reason why you're going fixed dome versus retractable roof? Is it because of the size of the acreage that you have, where you don't have enough? Is it because of the development you want to do around there where you don't want the roof columns outside of your ballpark? Is it because you did focus groups and your fans don't want open air because they're used to the Trop, which is a fixed dome, or now it is, so might as well, I think it was fixed my entire career actually, so might as well stick with that. Next question. Was it really Major League Baseball who said no to Montreal and Tampa, but you were really going to do that because you thought that that was really a possibility? I'd like a real answer to that question because I know for a fact it was never a possibility. And I do know it for a fact. From people within baseball, it was never going to get the votes. From people within the union, it was never going to get the votes. What benefit did you get from that sister city proposal? And then the last question I'm hopeful will be asked is, given how good you are at what you do, and this is a compliment, you're in the playoffs for a 5th year in a row. You're with a payroll in the bottom 5 always. Why do you want to raise your payroll? What would be the reason to raise your payroll? So you can make mistakes? So you can cover up those mistakes? Does the new stadium give you a runway to make mistakes? Or do you realize that the way you run it is the way every team wishes they could run it? So is this done just for a better fan experience, for more revenue, to pay down debt? What would be the reason? The reason I want to ask those questions is that I think it's going to be fascinating to hear what happens at the 10:30 a.m. press conference. Thrilled that we're going to get to talk about it on tomorrow's Nothing Personal live at 8 a.m. on the Nothing Personal with David Samson YouTube channel. Because sometimes these press avails, the fix is in. The questions are known in advance. And they are what's known as the Finchers. Do you know what a Fincher is, Coca? The Jenny Finchers? The softballs. The easy ones. Coca's yelling in my ear. What? Oh, you want to talk to Samson? Are you going to play the music? You don't have to play the music, but you could. Does a naming rights deal transfer to a new stadium, or do you have to renegotiate? That is a great question. The naming rights deal for Tropicana Field likely expires with the lease. If there are any provisions within the contract that include a right of first refusal or a right of first look, which means that Tampa has to go, the Rays have to go to Pepsi or to Tropicana and ask, do they want to do a naming rights deal? Here's the amount we're looking for, and they have the opportunity to say no or yes before anyone else. Or a right of first refusal, which has a quashing impact on the value. Side note, don't give a right of first refusal when you're selling your company or when you're doing anything. Because when someone has a right of first refusal, why would anyone bid when they know they can just be refused because they can be matched? But if there's a right of first refusal in the deal, which is highly unlikely, then Tampa can go negotiate with anybody and then go back to the Trop or Pepsi and they can decide, do they want to match it? So the answer is that it's not in the contract, Coca. But if it were, then it would be a contract not with a building. It would be the naming rights of a team. That goes from building to building. But naming rights as we know them are associated with buildings, not with teams. That would be like asking, would Network Associates all of a sudden get the Las Vegas naming rights because they had the Oakland A's naming rights? Nope, not the case.